Hi, I'm Mike McCarthy, and thank you for joining us today as we talk about what really is a new game plan when it comes to high school sports with athletes who can now benefit, at least for now, from NIL deals, those name, image, and likeness deals. Before we get into this conversation, make sure you hit that subscribe button below, and also, we would love to know what you think about all this. Should high school athletes be able to benefit from NIL? Leave a comment below, leave a question if you have one. We'll be going through all those as well. All right, on to the conversation today, and for that we have Luke Fedlam with us today. Luke, thank you very much.
Good to see you. Thank you.
You are a sports attorney here in Columbus. This is something you know a lot about. You've been working on it for years.
Yeah.
So for our viewers, can you just walk us through what firm are you with and what is your background when it comes to this subject?
Sure. So Luke Fedlam, and I'm at Amundsen Davis Law Firm, which is a firm headquartered in Chicago with an office here in Columbus. And I co-chair our entertainment, sports, and media practice. So my practice is really just focused on sports, the business of sports, and really from the perspective of protecting athletes. It's that desire to want to protect athletes that's caused me to get involved in this name, image, and likeness space really since 2019, when the state of California first passed their law around name, image, and likeness. It wasn't set to go into effect until 2023. Then we know Florida passed theirs, so then everything started in 21 for college athletes. And then very shortly after, states started passing it at the high school level as well.
And Ohio has been one of those states that has not allowed this to happen.
They have not. In fact, in 2022, May of 2022, they took a vote on name, image, and likeness for high school student athletes at the OHSAA level, and it failed convincingly. But think about how much has changed over the last 3 years. People have become much more comfortable with name, image, and likeness at the college level, certainly, but states have gotten comfortable with it at the high school level. There are 44 different states that prior to this lawsuit that allowed for name, image, and likeness, and Ohio was not one of those states. And so thankfully, we've been able to really get a positive response from the court, and now student athletes at the high school level are able to engage in name, image, and likeness.
And let's talk about that lawsuit, because it is a significant, potentially, it looks like, turning point when it comes to high school sports here in the state. You sued the Ohio High School Athletic Association, the OHSAA, and a judge in Franklin County has come down with a ruling. First of all, can you tell us a little bit about your client? This, it sounds like an amazing high school football player. Who is he, and what happened with the lawsuit?
Yeah, so the client is Jasmine Brown for the benefit of her son, Jameer Brown. Jameer Brown is a class of 2027, number one ranked wide receiver in the country for class of 2027. Wow. He's committed to Ohio State to play football. And their family is a family like a lot of families in Ohio that have had some challenges, that have struggled to try to make ends meet to set him up for the best success for his future in football. This prohibition that OHSAA had on name, image, and likeness really was something that stopped them from benefiting, not for what he was doing necessarily on the field every day, but just the ability that he has to provide social media influencing, get involved in trading card deals, do things to be able to earn compensation for all of the hard work that he's put in over the years. So the lawsuit itself was initially filed as a complaint in Franklin County here last week, and then we also at the same time submitted a motion for a temporary restraining order, a TRO. We had the TRO hearing earlier this week, and that allowed for us to be able to get a win, to get a victory from the court, ultimately enjoining or stopping OHSAA from applying their bylaw that prevented high school student athletes from engaging in name, image, and likeness.
So it is currently allowed. We'll see how this all works out in the legal process.
Yeah.
But if it stays, what do you think the implications are moving ahead for high school athletes all over the state?
This is significant. Now, it's significant for a couple reasons. One, OHSAA was behind 44 other states. And if we think about the talent that the state of Ohio produces, to not allow student athletes to earn compensation through NIL, you have the risk and reality of some athletes transferring out of the state, going to other states where they could earn compensation, going to some sports academies in other parts of the country. So that's a challenge and a risk to the overall kind of growth and opportunity of sport, of high school sport in our state. But then also there's a significant opportunity now where student athletes and their families that commit so much in terms of resources around club sports, travel, AAU sports, coaching, recovery, training, all of those costs that families put into their sons and daughters to be elite athletes, to get better, to live out their dream of playing sports, those are real costs to real families. And now there's an opportunity to engage in name, image, and likeness for the high school student athletes to be able to earn compensation and to be able to help contribute back to their families.
I feel like early on here in the conversation, I do need to point out, not everyone is on board.
Correct.
With this idea. Went around looking for the other side of the coin.
Yeah.
And found some information from, for instance, the National Institutes of Health. They've raised some concerns about mental health, added pressure that NIL would create on current high school athletes, the potential for increased focus on NIL deals at a younger and younger age, more intensive training at a younger age, a single sports focus, the potential for injury, along with the potential for parents to perhaps take advantage of their kids, exploit their kids in some way. For the critics of this idea, how do you address those concerns?
Those are real concerns. Let's just address that directly. Those are some real concerns, and we've seen those same concerns at the college level. But we've also seen that we know that with opportunities come responsibilities. But just because we have responsibilities doesn't mean that we should foreclose opportunities to high school student athletes and their families. Let's think about this for a second. We already know that the youth sports machine of AAU sports and club sports and travel sports, so travel baseball, travel volleyball, etc., significant cost, significant pressure, right? These are all things, the social media and young people, additional pressure, right? And cost and potentially distraction, these exist. So let's not just say that because these challenges exist that student athletes shouldn't have the right and the opportunity. But with those opportunities come responsibilities then for education, for knowledge, for understanding of how does name, image, and likeness work? How can I effectively navigate potentially a business that's going on around me in ways that maybe I didn't before? I like to say this: name, image, and likeness is a conduit to be able to teach real world, practical life skills to young people. We can talk about finance. We can talk about budgeting. We can talk about building and protecting your brand. We can talk about smart, responsible social media usage now in ways that high school student athletes will want to engage in that maybe they didn't before, because now there are real reasons to actually engage in those conversations now. And finally, on that point, name, image, and likeness is a reality at the college level across the board. So whether we're talking about D1, and a lot of times people will focus on D1, Power 4 schools, the big names, the big deals we read the headlines about, but there are student athletes across sports that are engaging in name, image, and likeness at D1, D2, D3 level. So why not now be able to have those conversations and a real exposure to it and a real intentionality around the education, so that when student athletes are transitioning from high school to college, they already have some knowledge and understanding before they're now out on their own, 18 years old, they're an adult, and they can sign what they want to sign at the college level. Now they can get that real education at the high school level as well.
What about the concern, though, that going down to this younger age, to the high school level, where kids are already in their real fundamental level education, the education that everyone should get, K through 12 education? What about the criticism that this will prioritize sports fundamentally above getting that basic education that we all need to have to become successful adults if sports don't work out?
It's a great question, and I love this question because I think so often sports plays a different role in the psyche of a lot of Americans, and I understand that. But let's be clear, if you're a student athlete that plays trumpet and you're really good, you can go out and play gigs, play concerts where you get paid and you earn compensation from it. And do we have challenge with young people doing that? No, we applaud that, we encourage that. Wow, look at what they're doing. If you have a student that's not an athlete that can do social media influencing because they can get on TikTok and they can garner tens of thousands of followers and local companies or national brands want to do deals with them, we don't stop that, we encourage that. What is it that makes sports so different in the psyche of how we look at this opportunity to earn compensation? That is where I think sometimes we get a little too narrow in our view, that we have non-athlete high school students who have the ability to go make money in other things that they do. High school student athletes should have that as well, to be able to do that and to be able to continue to play their sport. And one real world example, just to kind of help bring this to life a little bit more, prior to this ruling, If a high school student athlete pick any sport, played softball, and let's say they did social media influencing because they did indoor gardening, and let's say some company, a Home Depot, a Lowe's, a Scotts Miracle-Gro wanted to do a deal with that student athlete because of the following on social media that they have, they would have to get a waiver or approval, or would just be flat out denied by OHSAA prior to this ruling because they're also a student athlete. Now that student athlete has to choose, well, is it more important for me to do the social media influencing, or do I play the sport? Now they can do that.
Even though the pursuit is outside of sport.
Absolutely right.
So I'm curious for folks to understand, I mean, obviously when we talk about college level NIL deals, there's millions of dollars at stake. We've seen that time and time again as that's become the reality. For your client and his situation, can you educate us on what kind of money we're talking about at a local level? Granted, he's a standout star athlete, but what kind of money are we talking about?
Significant. It's significant money. I won't get into the particulars and the details, but
more than 100,000?
More than 100,000.
More than 5?
Don't keep. I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do that. I'm going to leave it at more than 100,000, and it's real. And I've had people reach out like, oh, I don't know if he's worth this or if he's worth that. The sports industry is really interesting right now for a whole host of reasons. Because of this opportunity where high school student athletes can earn compensation, we've seen this happen. I'll give you just, what we're seeing in states across the country. There are trading card companies and other companies that know that college student athletes can earn compensation, and so they are looking at their own investment and their own. Let's just look at trading cards, for example. You've got Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, and others, right, that all want that athlete if they go pro.
Okay.
And so now, because of college NIL, we can go try to start signing them now at the college level. And now with high school NIL, we can sign them at the high school level, show them the value that we can bring to ultimately, with the belief that if they continue to grow and continue to succeed, then we're going to have them as a pro as well. So it's investment that some of these companies are making, but it's real and it's happening and it's significant. And so for my client and for hundreds of, maybe thousands of high school student athletes across the country, right? There are these opportunities that are real, that exist, and we're seeing them take place.
I'm curious, after this became the reality for colleges back in 2021, how soon after NIL went to college did the rumbling start? Did the phone calls start to your office, or did you start to see this potentially brewing? Was it immediate? Did it take a couple years? How soon did high school enter the conversation?
Oh, for high school specifically, it started really kind of 2020, late 21, early 22. There were a couple states that got on right in 21, but it was very much what are we talking about here? Because let's remember too, right? And I think it's important to go back in time to remember that in the fall of 21, when name, image, and likeness became authorized at the college level, a lot of people, when I say a lot of people, I mean not just fans, I'm talking about college administrators, coaches, even student athletes thought, oh, well, that's just for the star football player or the star basketball player. This isn't for everybody. That was the mindset in the fall. Collectives, the idea of NIL collectives didn't even exist in the fall of 21.
And we've seen the change.
Massive change. And so, where some schools end up having multiple collectives focused on different sports, etc. So what we see now is this opportunity where high school started to say, okay, what does this look like? What does this mean for us? Because one of the most important things I think it's important for people to understand is high school NIL is different than college NIL. Same concept in terms of the licensing or lending for a fee of my name, my image, my likeness to a third party in order to get paid. But at the same time, there are guardrails that exist at the high school level that don't exist at the college level. Collectives exist in college, don't exist at the high school level. There are rules already that will remain on the books around eligibility when you transfer schools, reasons that you can transfer, etc. at the high school level that don't exist at the college level. So at the college level, we know that student athletes are getting paid ultimately for their play in their sport. At the high school level, it is truly what I call a pure NIL, where it is a company or a brand that wants to engage with a student athlete because that student athlete can help them with their product or their services and reach a demographic that they want to.
Who makes those rules?
So for the high school level, it's the individual high school athletic associations.
Okay.
And we know that OHSAA took a vote May of 2022. We know that it failed and that a lot's changed since then. Now they've got 44 other states that they look to and can look to around the rules and regulations. And when you look at those states, some people I've heard recently say every state has different laws around name, image, and likeness. That's true, but that's also misleading. when you look at the high school athletic association's regulations, they're all pretty much the same. Collectives can't exist. Student athletes can't do certain categories of deals, right? You can't do tobacco, banned substances, things like that. Alcohol. You can't use your schools or the high school athletic association's marks, logos. That's all pretty similar in these state high school athletic association regulations across the country. So that's what we're going to end up seeing from OHSAA, that they're going to present back to their constituents, to their high schools, to take a vote, and we'll see where that goes.
That's, I think, a misconception right away, because I didn't realize that those different rules existed, college versus high school. Are there other misconceptions about NIL at the high school level that you've encountered that you think need to be cleared up?
Yeah, I was actually talking with a colleague who's not involved in what we were doing that said, so now high school student athletes people are just gonna give them money. Like that's not what this is. It's not that someone is I'm not just gonna give you money. Now I'm the parent of a high school student athlete, right? I see it firsthand. I don't know why someone would just give my son any money for what he's doing, but at the same time, if he wants to now, he also plays trombone, he also does a lot of different things. If he were to be able to have opportunities to do a social media influencing campaign on something and get paid from a local business, or go do a gig somewhere with his instrument and get paid for that, like, it's earning. And I think that's the important piece. It's the high school student athlete's opportunity now to earn compensation, not just be given it. And at the college level, a lot of people will really say NIL is just giving these student athletes money to recruit them and to retain them at certain institutions. That's not at the high school level.
When you talk about the potential to earn vast sums of money potentially, what do you think the biggest risk is for families who might be dipping their toe into these financial waters that really probably have no experience with this?
Now you're really going to get me fired up, right? Because I care deeply about this. With those opportunities come responsibilities. What are those responsibilities? To understand contracts, right? Student athletes will be presented contracts that, as minors at the high school level, their parents will have to sign off on. You've got to understand what those contracts mean and negotiate those contracts to your benefit, to the family benefit. You've got to understand money. This is different. A lot of families are used to W-2 income where taxes are withheld, right? And you get the balance that's left. At the name, image, and likeness space, that's all you get. It's 1099. You get the full amount of that pay, and need to make sure that you have a plan around the finances and how you're going to handle it. You've got to watch out for people that want to just take advantage, right? I tell people all the time, I'm a lawyer who works in sports. I'm not an agent. I don't go out and find deals for athletes, right? I've had people that have asked me like, oh, how many deals are you going to go get? I'm not getting any deals for my clients on this. I care deeply about the protection and making sure that they have all the opportunity. So having a lawyer who understands this space, who understands what's getting presented and who the people are, who the third parties are, it matters. I've seen this at the college level, and I've worked with different high school athletic associations across the country, and I've seen where they need the education to understand, how do you deal with an agent that wants to represent your kid? How do you deal with a brand that maybe for the first time wants to get in this NIL space, but they don't even know what to do, so they present a contract maybe that doesn't necessarily work for the situation? How do you protect your intellectual property? How do you protect your brand? So all of these things are the responsibilities that now come with this opportunity.
Who else do you think should be involved in that conversation? Obviously, having someone with a knowledge of the legal aspects should review a contract, but I'm assuming financial planner?
Potentially, yep, depending on the size of the deal, or deals, financial planner. I think even being able to have, a lot of times there's comfort level with coaches, athletic directors at their schools. Like they're going to be people that are going to feel this. They're going to have to get educated and understand. They've been able to, just focus on the X's and O's, the youth development aspect of this, but now there's also going to need to be understanding around what does this all mean? I'll give you a quick example, because I think this is important for folks to understand. When you talk about name, image, and likeness, most people really don't understand what that means, right? Name is your name. People mostly get that.
Right.
But image, most people think, and student athletes included, coaches, parents, think image is your reputation in the community, how people see you, how people view you. But image is simply a photo or a video of you.
It's what you look like.
It's what you look like.
And with AI right now,
that's where we get into likeness. Because if you ask, and I talk to college student athletes across the country, I talk to high school student athletes and their families, most people think that likeness is your likability, your followers on social media, the likes that you get. It's not. It's a graphic representation of you. So to your point about AI, It's an avatar in a video game. It's the Jumpman logo. We know that's Michael Jordan, even though we don't see his face, name, jersey number, etc. Right? But AI now can create these cartoon characters, these graphic images of us and of people in a few seconds. And so understanding that matters so that you know, one, what is it that you're actually licensing or lending to a third party, but two, what do you also have to make sure that you protect?
Sure. How do you balance the responsibility, the reality of the situation with the excitement that comes with the deal? Because I got to imagine for any family who is proud of their son or their daughter and what they've accomplished, and that deal comes, how do you help families keep things in perspective?
It's hard, and it's one step at a time. You mentioned deals. The other piece where families get really excited is when that random person says, hey, I'm a marketing agent. I'd love to work with your kid. Every parent gets excited about that. It's like, oh my gosh, somebody wants to represent our kid. We're making it, we're going. And with both of those, with the opportunities, with agents reaching out, there has to be a level of skepticism, reality, and intentionality around understanding the situation. And it's hard. It's hard because that's why so many families do travel sports and AAU sports, because they want to give their kid every possible opportunity to be successful in the sport that kid, loves and wants to do. But there has to be, I have a lot of conversations around this is great, I'm excited for you, but let's talk about reality. This contract says that they want to get paid X. That's not normal. This contract says that they want to have the rights to your name, image, and likeness in perpetuity, which means forever. That's not normal, right? Being able to help bring a dose of reality can help kind of temper that excitement a little bit. I want families to always have the excitement, but not blind excitement. Let's walk in eyes wide open and understand that you can negotiate that situation so you can effectively navigate it for success.
So when you start to have that conversation, or when you start to think about it, what advice would you give to a student or to his or her parents about first steps as they may consider pursuing something like this? What's a good first step? What's the first approach?
Yeah, have a plan. Talk about it. And this is one of the things that I think why it's so important that that OHSAA gets involved in this idea of helping coaches, helping ADs talk about it. Not to promote it, not to distract student athletes, because I get it, right? Some people think that this could be a distraction, but more so talk about it from the perspective of, hey, this is real life. Let's start to have some real life conversations about this. Let's talk about this. So within a family, what does that mean? What do you want to do? Some student athletes just want to focus on the money aspect, but there are a lot of student athletes that use NIL, especially at the college level, for things like internships, exposure and building and growing their network, building and growing a following on social without necessarily receiving the compensation for it. There's benefit for that. Maybe it's getting products, right? Getting, I wash my hair with this shampoo, and I can do a deal where now I get that shampoo for free, or I eat at this restaurant and now I can eat that restaurant for free because I'm promoting it. And I think that's a good example, because restaurants, a lot of times, especially restaurants around campuses, around schools and things like that, they want high schoolers or they want college students to come in after school, after class, and purchase their food and things. So who better to promote than a student athlete at a nearby institution, right? That creates opportunities for them. It's real, but you've got to have that conversation as a family to say, what is it that we want out of this? And then what's our process going to be? And I tell student athletes this all the time. If your process is that you want your family to be involved in understanding, right? And maybe bringing a team of people, depending on the size of deals and opportunities around, then you've got to be able to stick to that process. If somebody DMs you on social media and says, hey, we want to do this, respond back, great. Please reach out to my parents at this email address, right? These are some simple things that families can do to help protect themselves, because that online social media direct message safety, it also matters.
When it comes to advice for families looking to get involved, is there anything else on that topic you want to address?
Yeah. I think for families, it's just important not only to have a plan, but then to think about where are the trusted resources that they can go for more information.
How do you go about developing who are your trusted resources?
Yeah, it's a challenging process sometimes, but it's doing your research. Whatever your trusted resources are on getting your car fixed, on the things that we do in life, like it's the same process, right? Talking to other people, reaching out, having conversations. If you have coaches that you trust, if you have family members maybe that have family members or even friends that have kids that have done it at the college level. What was their process? Who do they trust? And so I think having that kind of dialogue can be helpful. There are websites out there. There's one, the Athlete National Sports Business Clearinghouse, where you can look and see the people that have gone through a vetting process and have been vetted around background checks and all these other things to be able to say, are they somebody that's trustworthy? If it's on the financial side, there are broker check, that FINRA does, or other, the SEC does one as well, where you can do research on the financial folks that maybe pop up in your life. So it's just being intentional and going through that process, and then following. I've written and spoke about a lot of these topics, and I try to do it from an independent and objective way. A lot of times, as I mentioned earlier, people think that I'm just out here trying to get high school student athletes as clients. That's not the case. Right? At the end of the day, my book primarily looks at professional athletes and some elite college athletes. At the high school level, are there some that make sense? Yes, but that's not. The average family probably isn't going to need a lawyer directly on every single deal if it doesn't make sense. But at the same time, if you have some questions, it's going to be important to get that knowledge and information from somewhere in an independent and objective way.
So we started with college. Now we're at high school. How young is this going to go, you think? At what point is too young for NIL?
Well, I think there have been articles about different athletes at different levels that have gotten attention from an NIL perspective. I think it's important to understand as well, this focus on going younger and younger and younger has been happening outside of name, image, and likeness. When you look at coaches and recruiting basketball, they certainly are looking at and evaluating middle school players. We get rankings on middle school players. That's the top 10-year-old, that's top 11-year-old. We track it. Why? Because there is a significant financial impact to institutions, to coaches, and beyond if they can secure and land that elite player. So are we going to start to see interest from a name, image, and likeness perspective at a middle schooler? Could that happen? Potentially. But what's interesting is that, again, it's not something that's so wildly different that we haven't seen it in other phases and other aspects of sport. Take a step back. When we look at name, image, and likeness at the college level, there was a big uproar around we can't believe that college student athletes are getting paid. They're getting paid with their education. Why should they also get paid additionally? But that argument somewhat falls short when you think, okay, yeah, well, why is this coach getting paid $100 million? Right? If we think that education is the currency that we should work with, why not give that coach, hey, coach, you can get a PhD. You can study for a PhD while you're also coaching, right? That would be the equivalent. And so we have seen money. We've seen the multi-billion-dollar deals at the college level around media deals. And so when we continue to look, there are AAU coaches, right, in sports across the country that have been able to trade off of the value of the kids that they develop with the clothing companies, apparel companies, et cetera. So there's money around sport. It's just that student athletes haven't been able to participate in it. Now they're able to participate, and so let's use these opportunities to help prepare them and protect them.
But I mean, are we going to get to the point where it's like, you're out at the Pee Wee baseball level, and you're going to have sponsorships for these kids?
I think there's some reality to all this. I think that, again, when you start talking about high school, and then if you take that argument and go down to middle school and beyond, name, image, and likeness is real. Right? It's real. It's about a brand or a company being able to partner with a student athlete in a way that student athlete helps that brand, right? Helps that brand penetrate a market they want to, further grow their brand for products and services. And don't forget, from a contract perspective, there has to be obligations on both sides. Yeah. There has to be the student athlete providing something. So if the student athlete can't provide something, we're not going to see a company or brand just simply paying a student athlete. That student athlete has to also do something. And at the high school level, they can certainly do something through their social media following, making appearances, signing autographs.
We just had a lengthy conversation. What did I miss? What do you want to add to the conversation that I didn't ask?
I think oftentimes it's the human element of this. I think one of the things that many people that hear the headlines, that hear, all of a sudden high school student athletes are able to make money, sometimes they miss the human element. They miss the element of the parent that's working two jobs and trying really hard to make ends meet while at the same time giving their student athlete the opportunity to be able to compete at the highest level, get all the opportunities that other kids might have. Name, image, and likeness can help with that. It's the human element of the family that's making it by, but that check that they're cutting for AAU and club sports is a hefty check and a hefty impact on their family finances, but they want to give their student athlete all the opportunity in the world. It's the human element of understanding that name, image, and likeness isn't about just putting money in a student's pocket just because. It's about that student athlete now learning that there is a business out here. And if we can use name, image, and likeness as a conduit to help teach these life skills, that's a benefit. And on top of that, I'll say this. We've also missed out on the fact that name, image, and likeness is an equal opportunity, regardless of gender, sport, race, religion, socioeconomic status, and even athletic excellence. Because now you can have student athletes that maybe they're not the starter, maybe they're not the star, but they just happen to be really good at something else where they could earn compensation, and now they can do that. That's the human element of name, image, and likeness, and I think that's something that people have to remember when they hear the headlines.
Luke Fedlam, thank you very much. We appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for watching as well. Remember, we want to know what you think about all this. Leave that comment below. Leave a question if you have one. We'll be going through those. And also, make sure you click subscribe. Thanks for watching.